Hello, friends. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at the metaphor, life is a game, and some of the expressions that we use in American English that come from the idea that life is a game. So I've titled this Win, Lose, or Draw because the goal in a game is to win. However, in games, there are winners and there are losers. So this is what I would call a major metaphor. And within this metaphor, we have lots of smaller metaphors. For example, if you remember the idea that life is a journey. So life as a journey was a big metaphor, a very basic one. And so from that, we would get other smaller metaphors like life is a journey in a boat, or life is a pioneering journey, or life is a journey in a car or an airplane. So life as a game is like that, in that life as a game is a major metaphor. And then over the next few lessons, we'll be looking at some of the different kinds of games and specific expressions we get from specific games. So if you think about games, there are many different kinds of games. We've got sports games like baseball. We've got board games like chess. And in each of these games, there are players, there are rules, there's a goal to the game and a way to win the game. In each of these games, we have winners and we have losers. We've got people who watch the games and cheer for the people who are playing. But in this lesson, we're going to be looking at some of the basic vocabulary dealing with games and the expressions we get from just the basic vocabulary. So first, let's look at the game. So if we say that life is a game, we get some basic expressions from this, like to be a player. So every game has players in it. Depending on the game, it has a different number of players. But to say that somebody is a player in the game of life, it could have a couple of different meanings. So if we look at this first one here, to be a player in something, or we could say a major player in something or a key player in something. This usually means a person or an organization that has a lot of power or influence in a situation. So the situation is the game, like in a business, for example. So if there's somebody in a business who's very powerful or very important, we say that they're a major player or a key player. For example, Bill Gates is a major player in the computer industry. And if you don't know who Bill Gates is, he's the founder of Microsoft. So the program I'm using right now to show this, Microsoft PowerPoint, the program that we use to type essays, Microsoft Word, and all of the Microsoft products, that's his company, Bill Gates' company. So we could say that he's a major player in the computer industry. So this would be the first definition. For somebody to be a major player or a key player means that they're very important in an organization or some kind of a situation. The second expression we can get from this is to just be a player. If you call somebody a player, it has a little bit of a different meaning. Usually we use this with romantic relationships. So if we call somebody a player, usually we call a guy a player. We say he's a player. Somebody, usually male, who has many romantic relationships and is usually manipulative of the opposite sex. So if you listen to songs and they talk about somebody being a player, or if you watch movies or TV shows and they talk about somebody being a player, and they're not talking about sports or a game, they're just talking about life, then they're usually talking about a guy who will do and say whatever he needs to do to get what he wants. So for example, you can say, don't mess around with him. He's just a player and you'll end up getting hurt. So the first expression here, to be a major or key player, that's usually in business or the professional world. And the second one, to be a player, is usually in romantic relationships. So another expression we get is to play games with somebody. To play games with somebody. To play games with somebody means to behave in a way that is not serious or honest. For example, I broke up with her because she played too many games with me. It means they're not being serious about usually a romantic relationship. We can use it in other situations too, but oftentimes you'll hear it in relationships. So for example, there's a pop song from the 1990s called Quit Playing Games with My Heart. But we can also say if somebody's messing with your brain, that they're playing mind games, right? Or if they're playing with language, we can say they're playing word games. To get your head in the game. So here we got the expression get one's head in the game. So right here where it says one's, that's usually a possessive like my, your, his, her, our. So to get your head in the game means to focus your mind on what you're doing. This will get used a lot in sports when people just aren't focused or paying attention. The coach or maybe another player will say, hey, get your head in the game. But we can use it in really any situation where somebody's just not paying attention or not focusing. For example, if you want to do better in class, you've got to stop playing around on your phone and get your head in the game. So as a teacher, if I look at the classroom, I see somebody's just messing around on their phone, I can say, hey, get your head in the game. And that means focus on the lesson, pay attention to what's going on. So to be ahead of the game or to get ahead of the game is gaining or maintaining an advantage in a situation, often by completing a task before its given deadline. So the game here could be school, it could be work, it could be any situation where you have some kind of responsibility. So to get ahead of the game is to be working ahead before a deadline. So for example, my term paper isn't due until next week, but I want to be ahead of the game and finish it tonight. So teachers will say this to students. Don't wait until the day before something is due. Try to finish the assignment as soon as possible so that you're ahead of the game. Now, the opposite of this is being late in the game. So if something's late in the game, it's a time in a situation when it's probably too late to be successful, right? So usually most sports games will have some kind of a time limit. In football, for example, there are 4 quarters. So if a team gets to the 4th quarter of the game and it's almost the end of the 4th quarter and they're losing pretty badly, it's unlikely that they will be successful. It's unlikely that they'll win the game. Similarly, if you look at the example here, it says we've only got a week left of class, so it's pretty late in the game to be just now asking about improving your grade. You should have been asking about that many weeks ago. So I put this example in here because probably every semester I'll have 1 or 2 students who will come at the very end of the semester and they're not happy with their grade. And they'll say, what can I do to improve my grade? And I'll just say, it's too late in the game right now. There's just nothing else that you can do. There's no more assignments to bring your grade up. If you were really that concerned, you should have been ahead of the game and working the whole semester. Now, if something is a game changer or game changing, it's something that changes a situation in a really big way. For example, when the United States developed the atomic bomb during World War II, it was game changing and ended up shortening the war in the Pacific by months or years. So when the atomic bomb was developed, it completely changed the direction of the war in the Pacific for the United States and ended the war much sooner than it would have. We could also say that certain kinds of technology are game-changing because it changes the way that people live. For example, smartphones. So before the iPhone was invented, there were no smartphones. But once smartphones were developed, it completely changed the way that people act and behave because now they can be texting, surfing the internet, and doing many other things, playing games almost all the time, which was something they couldn't do before the invention of the smartphone. So the smartphone was game-changing, or we could say it was a game changer. Now here's a couple of examples from the newspaper. If you look at the first one here, this is from the Fargo Forum, so it's the local newspaper. It says Career and Tech Academy, a game changer for Moorhead. So they're looking at opening up a new career and technical academy in the city of Moorhead, and they're calling it a game changer because it could change the way that education is done and job training for many people in the city. If you look at the second one here, where it says Pantry Perfect, pantry is where you put your dry foods at home. So brown butter is game changing in these chocolate chip cookies. So they're saying that using brown butter will make a really big difference in the way these cookies turn out. I don't know, I've never tried them. I didn't try to make the recipe. Now, every game has rules. So likewise, we get some expressions that come from rules. For example, to play by the rules. To play by the rules is to obey the rules of a particular system. So in sports, if you play by the rules, then, for example, in soccer, you don't get a yellow card or a red card. But in business, if you play by the rules, it just means you do what's expected of you. And when you do that, usually things work out pretty smoothly for you. For example, if you want to be successful in this company and move up, you've got to play by the rules just like everybody else, or just like everyone else. So usually companies, businesses will have rules. Some of those rules they say clearly, and some of the rules people just know what's expected of you. They're not written down anywhere. So if you play by the rules, then you're following just the normal way that that system works, whether it's work or school or whatever system. However, if somebody plays by their own rules, they do things the way that they want, rather than obeying the rules of a particular system. So it doesn't mean necessarily that they're breaking the rules. It just means that they're doing whatever they want to do. They don't really care about the rules. For example, Donald Trump mostly plays by his own rules, which sometimes works out well for him and sometimes gets him in trouble. Because Donald Trump was a businessman and didn't really have any political experience, he does things the way that he wants to do them, not the way that people expect politicians to act. And so we can say that he plays by his own rules, for better or for worse. Now, the opposite of playing by the rules is breaking all the rules. So in a game, if you break all the rules, normally you get thrown out of the game. But in life, if you break the rules of life or a situation, you're just going completely against what is normal or expected in a particular situation. For example, sometimes if you want big change to happen, you got to break all the rules. So this could be the normal rules for social relationships. This could be the rules for the way people do things in business or in other situations like that. It just means going against what people expect of you. And so you'll see teenagers, usually teenage boys, oftentimes they'll start to disobey their parents and break all of the rules that their parents have for them. Usually it's a phase that they'll go through. So these next two are very similar looking, but they have quite different meanings. So this first one here is to cheat on someone, and the second one is to cheat someone. So the only difference here is the word on. So to cheat on someone is a phrase that we use in relationships. It means to have a romantic relationship with someone when you are already in a committed relationship with someone else. For example, his wife left him because she caught him cheating on her. So you probably heard this one before in songs or in movies. So to cheat on somebody is breaking the rules of a romantic relationship. However, cheating somebody without the on, just to cheat somebody, this is one that's used more in business. It means to unfairly prevent someone from getting or achieving something they should have. For example, sometimes very rich people get cheated out of millions of dollars by their financial advisors. So if you go and buy something and you paid a price that you shouldn't have paid, then maybe you got cheated on it. If you bought a car that had a lot of problems, but they didn't tell you had a lot of problems, then you got cheated. So cheat someone we'll use in business, and cheat on someone we'll use in relationships, romantic relationships. All right, and in every game, there's some kind of planning that's done, usually by the coach or the players. So some expressions that come from planning, we have this expression, the game plan, right? We can say the game plan or my game plan, your game plan, his game plan. A game plan is just a plan for achieving success. Here, we're not actually talking about a game. Here, the game is life, right? So a game plan is your plan for achieving success in a particular situation. For example, what's your game plan after you finish your degree? So here, your game plan would be referring to your education plan or maybe your job searching plan. So, okay, you want to get a job. How are you going to get the job? I can say, what's your game plan? We could even say if for the weekend, right? If it's the weekend and my friends want to know what we're doing, we can say, hey man, what's the game plan? What's the game plan for this weekend? That just means, what are we doing? All right. In every game, we want to score somehow, get points. So to score points with someone is to do something that will make someone like you. So here the game is getting somebody to like you. So to score points with them is getting them to like you. So it means to do something that will make someone like you. For example, he tried really hard to be funny and cool to try to score points with Amanda. So here we have a boy who's trying to score points with a girl because he wants the girl to like him. So it's viewing the relationship as a game. The opposite of this is to lose points with someone. So to lose points is to do something that will make someone like or respect you less. For example, he really lost points with Amanda when he spilled his drink on her and then didn't even offer to pay for dinner. So here they're losing respect for the person. They're losing points. Now everybody wants to win the game. So how do we win the game of life? Some expressions that come from this are to be a winner. So a winner is just somebody or something that is very successful or popular. For example, Apple had a real winner when it developed the iPhone. It has set the standard for the entire smartphone industry. If you listen to the president right now, Donald Trump always talks, I can't say always, most of the time he talks in terms of winning and losing. So if you listen to the language that he's using, you can get the idea that he's thinking of the situation that he's in like it's a game. So if he likes somebody, or if somebody's successful, he'll call them a winner. If he doesn't like somebody, he'll call them a loser. Now here's a headline from the paper. It says Trump wins if economy wins. So here they're using game vocabulary, winning, right? But we're actually talking about the economy. So the economy, if it's doing good, if it's winning, then Trump will probably win the election. That's what it's saying. If the economy is doing good, then he's probably going to win. So Trump wins, this is literal. He'll win the election. If economy wins, that's an expression. That's figurative. So similar to scoring points is to win over somebody or to win somebody over. So let's say you're trying to get somebody to like you, so you try to score points with them. Well, if you score enough points, then you win, right? You get them to like you finally. So to win them over is to succeed in getting someone's support or agreement or getting them to like you, especially when the person was previously opposed to you. For example, he had some good ideas but failed to win over Congress. So when you're trying to win over somebody or win somebody over, it means you're trying to get them to like you or to agree with you. Now here's an expression. It doesn't really change. It just stays like this, in it to win it. And this can have a couple of different meanings. The first one, probably the more common one, we say this when somebody is fully committed to being successful in something. Usually somebody will say this about themselves. So they'll say, I'm in it to win it. That just means that they're going to give 100% of their effort. They're fully committed to being successful. For example, I don't want to just barely pass this class with a C. I'm in it to win it. And so here the idea would be winning it would be getting an A probably in the class. The second definition or a meaning of in it to win it is we might say this to somebody else. We'd say, if you want to be successful, then you've got to participate. That means you have to be in it to win it. For example, I know you really want to get that job, but you've got to be in it to win it. So send a resume first. So if you want a job, you're not going to get the job unless you apply for the job. So you have to be in it to win it, which means you have to apply for the job in order to get the job. We have this other expression here. It basically stays the same, doesn't change, winner take all. So winner take all is when only one person gets all of the benefits from being successful in a situation. So in some types of games, you can divide points, split points, so everybody gets a little bit of something, right? But most games, you either win or you lose. There's no in between. So in that situation, we would say that winner take all. For example, the problem with politics in America these days is that the two parties both believe that it is winner take all. So if one party wins, that means the supporters of the other party lose, and it shouldn't be like that. So if you look at a lot of politics these days, you'll see that whatever party is in power, they will usually just try to do only what they want to do because they believe if we won the election, then we should be able to do just what we want to do. We don't have to compromise with the other side. Opposite of this is a win-win situation. So a win-win situation is a solution that is beneficial for everyone involved in the situation. It's win-win. Both sides win. For example, a teenager might say this to their parents. If you let me borrow the car, then I can do the grocery shopping after I hang out with my friends. It's win-win. So they're saying that the teenager would win by getting to use the car, and the parents would win by having the grocery shopping done for them. It's win-win. To beat someone at their own game. So this is a form of winning, but you're using a strategy or a tactic that the other person used to beat you in the past. So to beat someone at their own game is to get an advantage over someone using a method they have used against you before. So you're just basically doing what they've done before to win. You do the same thing back to them to win or to be successful. For example, one of the reasons Donald Trump won the election was because he beat the media at their own game. The media usually controls what people are talking about, but Donald Trump managed to control what people were talking about. And that's one of the interesting things about the last election is usually it's the media, like the news channels or news websites, and they kind of set the agenda or decide what people are going to be talking about, right? So if they want people to focus on the economy, they'll start writing about the economy. If they want people to focus on gun control, they'll start talking about gun control. And then you'll see the presidential candidates will start talking about it after the media has already started talking about it. However, Donald Trump, what he did is he just went to Twitter and he would tweet something out on Twitter, and then everybody would start talking about it. So he was the one deciding what everybody was going to be talking about. So he was beating the media at their own game. He wasn't going to play their game. Now, every game has its losers too. So losing is being unsuccessful in a situation. To be a loser is someone who regularly fails. It's used as an insult. If you call somebody a loser, it just means that they're usually bad at something or not good at something. Like I said before, the president will use this with somebody he just doesn't like. He'll call them a loser. For example, if you keep calling someone a loser, they might start believing it and never become successful. So you might feel like a loser sometimes, or somebody might call you a loser. It could just be an insult. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're regularly failing. They just might not like you. And opposite of a win-win situation is a no-win situation. That means no side gets a benefit. So a no-win situation is a problem or situation that has no good solution. For example, if you take away people's guns, you take away their freedom. But if people have guns, then mass shootings will keep happening. So it's a no-win situation. So you'll find that there's a lot of the biggest political issues, depending on how you look at them, they're really no-win situations because something bad is going to happen no matter which side you choose. Now here's another fun expression. You snooze, you lose. So this one's used informally. So often family members would use it with each other or friends would use it with each other, and it doesn't really change. So snooze is another word for sleep. So we could say you sleep, you lose. But we say it when someone misses an opportunity because they weren't paying attention or waited too long to act. For example, haha, I got the last piece of cake, you snooze, you lose. It just means you weren't paying attention, so I got the last piece of cake. So you missed out on an opportunity because you weren't paying attention. Going back to the life is a journey in a boat, you missed the boat. So we could say you snooze, you lose. So in every game, there's winners and losers, and the possibility that one person might win or lose is what we call the odds. That's the percentage of chance of them winning or losing, the likelihood of their winning or losing. We call these the odds. So we have this expression, you win some, you lose some. Now people normally say this when they're unsuccessful in a situation, but they're not going to be angry about it or disappointed. They're just deciding to move on. So you win some, you lose some is said to acknowledge that you can't always be successful in life. So let's say you take a test. Like here, it says, I guess I failed my test, but I'll do better next time. You win some, you lose some. So this is normally said after somebody is unsuccessful, but they don't plan to keep being unsuccessful. Or you can say it to encourage somebody else. If somebody else is not successful, you can say, well, you win some, you lose some. That means don't be upset. Just try better next time. And another expression here, usually it's said in surprise. We say, what are the odds? So we say, what are the odds to acknowledge that something that has happened is really surprising and unlikely. For example, my wife and I both grew up in the same place in Minnesota, but we met in Texas. What are the odds? And this is true. I wrote this because my wife and I, we grew up in cities that were only 20 minutes apart. And it turned out that our cousins knew each other from school, but we had never met before. We actually met as adults in Texas, which is on the complete opposite end of the United States. So statistically, it's unlikely that we would have met in Texas, but we did. So we say, what are the odds? To say that the odds are in somebody's favor or something's favor means that someone or something is likely to be successful in a situation. For example, the odds were in Hillary Clinton's favor to win the election. So everyone was shocked when she lost. And in the movie The Hunger Games, in the books too, they have the saying, may the odds be ever in your favor. That just means may you be successful in the situation. Different from this is to say the odds are stacked against someone. So if the odds are in your favor, that means you're likely to win. If the odds are stacked against you, that means you're unlikely to win or unlikely to be successful. For example, the odds were stacked against Donald Trump's winning the election. So if you just looked at it, he's got no political experience. He said a lot of really strange things during the election. He did everything kind of breaking the rules and playing by his own rules. So most people didn't expect him to win. The odds were stacked against him. However, he beat the odds. So to beat the odds is to succeed despite not having a good chance of succeeding. So if the odds are stacked against you or are against you, but you still are successful, then you beat the odds. For example, most new restaurants fail, but this one somehow managed to beat the odds. And I can't remember the statistics, but I think something like 9 out of 10 new restaurants fail within the first 5 years, right? So if you're opening a new restaurant, statistically, the odds are against your being successful. But you can beat the odds. Now, these expressions, the odds are in somebody's favor, the odds are stacked against somebody, and to beat the odds, they get used a lot also with severe illnesses. For example, cancer. So if somebody has a form of cancer that's easily treatable, we say that the odds are in their favor. They're more likely to live than to die. However, if somebody has a form of cancer where they're unlikely to survive, we say that the odds are stacked against them. But even if the odds are stacked against them, if they manage to live, we say they beat the odds. And every game has people who watch, even video games, which is strange. Because if you look at YouTube, there's probably thousands of videos of people just playing video games, and people go on YouTube and watch these videos. So every game has people who watch the game. And these people who watch are called spectators. So spectating is watching a game. It's watching something. So to say something is not a spectator sport, we say this to remind someone that they cannot just watch something happen. They have to be active in it. For example, if you want to be successful, you have to go out and work hard for it. Life isn't a spectator sport. And so this is the one that you'll hear most often. Life isn't a spectator sport, because if you're alive right now, you're involved in the game of life. You're part of the game of life. You can't just sit on your couch and do nothing, watching life. You have to actually get out and do something if you want to be successful. So life isn't a spectator sport. That means you can't just sit and watch. You have to participate. And then another kind of spectator is called a cheerleader. So in some sports, they've got cheerleaders, for example, football and basketball. And the cheerleaders are the people on the sidelines, usually females, who are cheering for their team and trying to get other people to cheer for their team. So they're leading the cheer. Like, go Vikings. Yeah, go Vikings. That's cheering. You're cheering for your team. So a cheerleader is a person who encourages another person or other people to do something, to be successful. For example, our mother was always our biggest cheerleader when we were growing up. Every time we wanted to do something, she encouraged us to go out and do it. So here, our mother is the cheerleader for us in life.